Oh, hey y'all, welcome back to Fatty Selfful Hints, a show dedicated helping you learn all things nerdy. And today we are going to break down the Morbius, the Living Vampire trailer. And let's just jump right into it. So the very first thing you get in this trailer is... Holy bloody schmoly. Is a trailer before a trailer. I hate those things. I don't know why they do it. Just jump with the trailer, right? Anyways, so you start... And you see Morbius as a kid. You see his mentor kind of come in and protect him from being bullied, lead him into this hospital. You see that he's probably a doctor himself, and he kind of talks about how he was a gifted child. You know, he wasn't just like Joe somebody. Now, one thing I'm going to be referencing a lot throughout this entire trailer is his health. I think that's going to be the key to kind of putting things in order, kind of understanding the flow of this movie as well as themes, plot, all of that. So right here, you see that he's very healthy. You know, later on, you'll see him really down. Sometimes you'll see him very vampiric. Sometimes, you'll just kind of see him on the spectrum. So here, I believe it's not the beginning of the movie. It kind of wants you to believe it as like an origin. Like this guy is dealing with where he starts from. But it's not going to necessarily... This part, I think, is going to be after he's already being conflicted with, his new abilities, maybe the thirst for blood, stuff like that.
There's an answer to your disease.
So here you see that he's getting a Nobel Prize in physiology of medicine, or medicine. So he's a Nobel Prize winner in the comics books as well, and it is for this research about his blood disease. And unfortunately, the way he ends up going to wanting to cure it is a little bit more extreme than what his research was leading. But again, this is going to be a movie about identity and conflicts and like how far are you willing to go to get your goals, and how much are you willing to like lose of yourself to get to that area.
You'll find it.
In association with Marvel. That's one thing, again, this movie's going to actually, this trailer's going to hit on, is this whole first part is going to be just like, this is who Morbius is. And the second part is going to hit home like, this is a Spider-Man movie. So we'll kind of talk about that as it goes on, but that in association with Marvel is kind of the very first thing. It is a Marvel movie. So here you see... Obviously, he's the patient in this scenario, like trying to calm himself with his little singing, as well as you see his health starting to deteriorate. Not bad, but you definitely see the coloration of him versus like this other doctor here. So again, just kind of probably heading down the path of getting sick and really pushing him to get to this point where he's starting to experiment with stuff and becoming Morbius.
Why am I still here if not to fix this?
Again, really sick.
I have a rare blood disease.
Helping himself, and like showing how like him helping others as well. And then something here that I find interesting is, his doctor friend, I believe it's a fiance. I can't remember it, to be honest with me. I'll have to look that one up a little bit. But she's counting his spine. So I don't know if this is maybe after he starts to kind of get better and like he's starting to go through a transformation and you kind of see it like affecting him and like he's got like an extra spinal growth. You kind of see some veins in here, and like in particular right here, it looks a little different than everywhere else. As well as this next shot, you see these implants. Now, you're going to see this again in another time in the trailer when you see Tyrese Gibson's character for the first time. But I think this might have to do with something that he uses, maybe some technology and medicine to become Morbius. I believe this is at the state where he's like almost his weakest, right before he gets the turn. And I think this is going to have some kind of connection with his ability or like the origins of his ability as well. But only time will tell. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below as well. See him experimenting with bats and other stuff. Just, again, hitting home, like, this movie's going to be about him trying to find his cure.
That's not exactly legal.
Now, here is, again, kind of a turning point in it. I'm going to really use this shot right here to kind of talk about some things. He's healthy here. He definitely doesn't look as sickly as he has in all the other shots where he still needs his crutches. So I think this is kind of a turning point where I think he is affected by the vampiric plague. I don't know how they're going to really kind of sell it, but you're right. Like he's infected with it. So he's starting to become a vampire here. Hasn't fully affected him yet, but I think he still has some psionic abilities with bats, as well as just kind of, again, it's just that transformation. It's not super sickly here.
I want to see you get hurt more than you already have.
This would be a cure.
Again, that intensity about finding a cure, but he was sick in that last shot, and this shot he's doing better. So I think that, again, just leading, like, this is after he's kind of gone past the worst part of his sickness. Again, going with that whole theme of cost. At this point, I think it shows him kind of in this cage, and I think this is where he starts to really start to struggle with it. So it shows him pretty healthy. So I think this is, definitely past the point of crutches before he turns into a vampire. But I think this whole movie is going to be his transformation and him kind of like pushing the people away from him that are the closest. Such as her, like in this kind of moment, as she hears him, you hear that kind of like creepy sound, which I absolutely love. And again, here, the first bit of hitting it home, this is like a Sony movie. This is an MCU movie, but this is going to be Spider-Man. Spider-Man is probably not going to be seen like Tom Holland's probably not going to be seen like in the movie as Spider-Man, but like you're definitely going to hear Spider-Man's name in the movie at some point.
Michael. What's happening?
Oh, I get. Oh no, I skipped past. Sorry. So yeah.
Michael.
Again, she's getting kind of worried, like, what is this doing to him? His heart rate here is incredibly low. Like, you shouldn't be at, like, 72 beats per minute. And this is, again, looking at his, like, at his worst. But also, like, these things are highly important to something. And you see that, like, sickness kind of, like, spreading through his veins a little bit here as well.
Feeling more alive than ever.
And then to the next shot, feeling more alive than ever. He's, like, full-blown hunk mode, ripped guy. He's like feeling good, strong. So I think that's like the reflection of like him at his peak, but again, be kind of like as a bell curve right before he kind of goes back downhill to see like the transformation into a vampire.
Increased strength and speed.
Now it shows off his abilities. He talks about strength and speed. And here's something very particular. I see two colors that have this kind of magical essence to it, and I think it's supposed to be its portrayal of like psionic abilities. And you see red and purple. Now I don't think red is gonna be the one that's associated with Morbius, even though his eyes are red and like red's kind of his color scheme. I think the purple is going to be associated with Morbius, and the red is going to be kind of associated with Matt Smith's character, which is Loix Crown. I know I said that first name wrong. I don't know how to say it. Sorry, leave a comment down below how to say it right. So I think they're going to go classic MCU here. I think they're going to take a copycat of the protagonist and make it the antagonist. He talked about Matt Smith's character who's supposed to be the protagonist, who's his friend who has a blood ailment ever. So, to draw like some clear parallels to it, you have like Black Panther and Killmonger, like very similar Purple Herb suit. You have Ant-Man and Yellow Jacket in the first one, which are just shrinky suits fighting each other. You got, in the first Iron Man as well, Iron Man versus Iron Man suit, So I think they're going to go down that route. You're going to go vampire versus vampire, and they're going to just be reflected as different people in these color schemes. This next clip's going to show it's like Bionic Glide, which is one of my favorite abilities from the comic book. It's a very comic booky kind of special move to show or ability. We'll show that right here. And I think that's really cool. I like how they're leaning a little bit more into the comic book side than the like more realistic side of it. So that's really cool. But that purple tone, I think, is what's going to be really the Morbius side of it. And then the red, like I said, is going to be the crown side of it.
Use echolocation.
Again, just kind of showing abilities, who he is, what he can do,
Urge to consume blood.
as well as the fault of what he did. That how far you're willing to go, at what price, that constant urge, to feed on blood. So these two shots are going to be the most important ones that I really want to talk about. First off, we'll discuss this at the very end, but we need to know that Morbius at one time is going to go into prison. He's got other clothes here that he's carrying. He's like got this kind of like emergency style blanket kind of covering up the orange jumpsuit, which is classic prison. So yeah, we need to just remember that. And then again, the kind of the talk of the town, the thing that everyone wants to point out in this trailer is this poster. Now, something I really want to point out is that, Spider-Man PS4 screenshot, that was a promotion for the Sam Raimi suit, which is the suit you see there, and then the murderer talking about Far From Home, Far From Home. But what I really want to think this is more, bigger implication into is going to be the multiverse. That's where MCU said they're going to be starting to head. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, as well as WandaVision supposed to lead heavily into that, as well as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse really like leaned into the Spider-Verse, which is basically the same thing but just more Spider-Man centric. So I think this is a low-key way of them kind of saying that this might be, a part of the multiverse, that this might be its own, not necessarily Earth 616, but this is going to be like Earth like 312 or something like that it's going to be an alternative maybe dimension that like can pull from the history of all Spider-Man and almost like merge them together. And that's why you get this like poster that showcases like 3 separate medias of Spider-Man all into one. Very interesting. All owned by Sony too, if you really think about it. Sam Raimi was Sony, PS4 Sony, the Spider-Man, as well as Into Spider-Verse. So I think that's really where that's leading into, and has some further implications, but we'll talk about that at the very end of the trailer. Now, this is one I mentioned again. This goes super fast here. This is Tyrone Gibson's character. His name is Simon Stroud, and he is just kind of like not a monster hunter. He's like an agent, more of a police officer, but you see him in the comics where he is more of like a monster hunter. So you see him with like Man-Wolf and stuff like that. Morbius, the living vampire. But I see these like, again, microchip kind of looking things in tubes on his arm, which reminds me of where Morbius was right when he was like, with the low heartbeat and like really like shriveled up, like almost looking like a little raisin. So I don't know what the connection there is. Maybe like Tyrone Gibson's character is using it to like strengthen himself to fight with the vampires. Like if that was the way that they used it to like transform themselves, maybe that like helps him there. Or maybe it's like he got bit or something, so that's his like way of fighting, transforming it. So that's just something interesting I wanted to point out, as well as this red glow again. You kind of see that psionic attempt here. So I don't really know what's going on. They're obviously looking at something that's kind of like mind-blowing. Like these guys are all freaked out. This guy's like, what is going on here, man? And then Tyrone Gibson's like got his usual like BA look on his face, like, I got this. So yeah, like I don't know exactly what's going on, but I think this, and being implicated with the police again, I feel like this is again like a bad guy moment more than like Morbius, because I think he's going to be portrayed as more of an anti-hero, kind of like Deadpool was, like where he's definitely not a good guy. He's like not an X-Men or anything like that, but he's not a bad guy either. Get our first look at the main antagonist, like I said, Matt Smith's character as Lois Crown. The only look at you get of him, it says he has the same disease and stuff like that, but you don't really see anything of it, so I just throwing that one out there.
Fix something that's broken.
Got Morbius being Morbius.
Until the remedy is worse than the disease.
And then you get it, the money shot, Morbius being Morbius. So yeah, I love that line, where you're willing to cross, and it's like when the remedy is like worse than the disease. And like, dang, that's a powerful line. And I think that's just like could be the tagline of the film. You obviously see these like identity and like, goal setting and like what are you willing to give up to reach those kind of goals. And I love it, just very in your face, like with this final transformation. I'm like, this really did jack him up. Like, that's may have gone a little further than he really wanted it to go. And then Morbius. You see the little blood trickle down the letters.
Michael Morbius. Got tired of doing the whole good guy thing, huh?
What's up, Doc?
So I don't necessarily think those two scenes, the audio kind of seems a little bit overlapped. But, I want to see Michael Keaton's face. Come on. There we go. So what I really think this is Adrian Toomes from Spider-Man Far From Home, obviously. Since they're leaning so heavily into it, I highly doubt they would use such a recognizable actor in such like the same way to really implicate anything besides that. And I think there's some meaning behind that, or the reason why they did it. But first off, I don't know what their relationship is. Earlier in the scene when I showed you the Spider-Man picture, I talked about how Morbius was in an orange jumpsuit. Well, the last time we saw Adrian Toomes was in prison at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming. So I'm really wondering if maybe they have a connection where they met in prison or anything. I don't necessarily think that's 100% the route, because he talks about, are you tired of playing like the good guy? I'm like, what's up, Doc? So obviously he knows him from the Doctor, so I don't know what their relationship is going to be, but what I think that this in the Spider-Man picture and all of that kind of represents is that they're going to bring the Sinister Six. The whole point of the Spider-Man PS4 game, not the whole point, but a big portion of it was setting up the Sinister Six. You got to see different people and they all came together. And there was more like villains in the game besides the Sinister Six, but they were like the antagonists. You talk about the Sam Raimi PS4 games. That was about or the Sam Raimi PS4, the Sam Raimi Tobey Maguire movies, that was really the last one was starting to set up the Sinister Six. They said it. That's why they crammed so many villains in, and it just didn't work. What I think that they're doing, and this is very smart, is that they've already introduced enough characters to fill out the Sinister Six, but they all don't have to be in a Spider-Man movie because they're in the Spider-Man universe. So when they come together, it's going to make sense. So kind of going off in the order that we've like met them. So you have Adrian Toomes as the Vulture. You have the Shocker as well. You have the Tinkerer, which not a lot of people know that, but he's like the bad guy that makes like weapons for bad guys, like what Adrian Toomes was doing, but in the comic books, but like for like all the bad guys. You have Mysterio as well to kind of fill it out. Then you have now Morbius and you have Venom, which it would be a really sick, like wide, diverse group of characters to face against Spider-Man as well. But I think that that's the whole connection that those were meaning to kind of just say, hey, this is going to be the Sinister Six setup for Spider-Man. And I think that's why they're trying to push like Spider-Man, 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 remember me, remember, you know, like I really think that's the kind of key to the whole thing. So before I close out this video, I just want to throw you guys one more fun fact. A lot of people kind of wonder why it's Morbius, the living vampire, instead of Morbius, like a vampire. So back in the 1970s, when the Spider-Man 101 was first released, they were not allowed to imprint, not just Marvel, but people were not allowed to imprint, just put undead things. So no like zombies, no vampires, no ghouls or wraiths, or anything that was dead but is like reanimated but is technically dead. So what they did, which is really clever but at the same time like doesn't really make a ton of sense, is that they called him Morbius the living vampire because he was never dead, he was living, but he's a vampire. So you can print it because it's not technically breaking that law, but it's like what's the difference at that point, right? Like, so it's kind of silly. I like to think of it as kind of a fun fact, so I just thought you guys might enjoy it as well. So don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. If you guys love nerdy things like I love nerdy things, share this video with anybody else that wants to know a little bit more about Morbius the Living Vampire or is just excited about the future of the MCU, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.